March 11th, 2025. The Planning Commission is conducting in-person regular meetings. However, the ability to participate electronically is continuing. These meetings are via Zoom pursuant to state law. The public can find information on how to participate in Planning Commission meetings in our public notices. Directions on how to find the full meeting materials, applications, and staff reports on the city's website are also included in our public notices. I note that we have 6 of the 7 commissioners here. Hi, Greg. Thank you. We will move to announcements. Brandon, do you have any staff announcements?
I do. Thank you, Chair Werner. First off, I'd like to introduce Veronica Allen. If you've not met her, she's an associate planner with the City of Ashland, and you'll be seeing her later this evening as presenting on the 231 Granite project. Additional announcements, I wanted to note that the Department of Community Development has largely finished updating our online permitting software in order to allow for 29 permit types to now be submitted remotely. So that is a push that has been going on in the last year and a half and is now completed. I wanted to note that the City Council at their most recent meeting upheld the Planning Commission's approval of the Kestrel Phase 3 subdivision and rejected the appeal of that action. Also, the property at 110 Terrace Street, which the Planning Commission heard and made an interpretation that a peer respite center is most similar to a traveler's accommodation. That project has not been appealed, and the appeal deadline was Monday, and as such, that project is concluded. I also wanted to note that the City Council is going to be having a study session on climate-friendly areas and an orientation on the manufactured housing park zone at their upcoming study session on March 17th. Lastly, I just wanted to announce that if you haven't taken the Parks and Recreation Strategic Plan online survey, it is open until March 15th, and that can be found at ashlandparksandrec.org. And it is a survey that helps them determine their future parks projects. And that's all I have.
That's quite a bill. Thank you very much. And we'll move on to the consent agenda. We have 2 sets of minutes to approve, January 28th study session and February 11th regular meeting. Anybody have any questions or comments about the minutes? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adopt the consent agenda.
Thanks, Lisa. I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda approval of minutes for January 28th study session and the February 11th regular meeting.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Aye.
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 Okay, those are adopted. We now move on to public forum. I have not gone through these list of speaker requests, but are any of them for items not on the agenda? Okay, seeing none, we're going to dispense with public forum and move on. Our next item is unfinished business. We have approval of findings for PA-T3-2024-00010, which is a request for annexation and zone change for a 4.8 acre property along with adjacent right-of-way at 300 Clay Street. The application also includes a request for a 25 lot, 37 dwelling unit outline plan approval for performance standards option, a PSO subdivision, and a limited activities water resource protection zone, or WRPZ permit. We're making a recommendation of approval for the annexation to the City Council, and we are approving the outline plan for the PSO subdivision and the limited activities WRPZ permit, subject to council annexation approval. Have any of the commissioners had ex parte contact on this issue? John? No?
No, I have not.
No. Thank you.
Yep.
No ex parte.
No ex parte.
And I've not had any ex parte either. Greg?
No ex parte.
Thanks. Any questions about the findings before us?
I would just note that Commissioner Phillips had two typos that were corrected and have been in the version for you to sign. Those have been corrected.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or? Then I would entertain a motion to either adopt or deny.
Thanks, Chair Werner. I'd like to make a motion to approve the findings for PAT3 2024-00010 for 300 Clay Street.
Yeah, and I'll second that.
Okay, moved and seconded. Roll call, Michael?
Commissioner Perkinson,
Aye.
Commissioner Phillips,
Aye.
Commissioner Herron,
Aye.
Commissioner McCracken-Jen,
Aye.
Commissioner Moore,
Aye.
Chair Werner.
Aye. Okay, the motion is adopted. We are now moving on to item 6, the type 2 public hearing. This is a type 2 public hearing that's held before the Planning Commission, with the Planning Commission making a decision afterwards, and that decision is appealable to the City Council. This hearing is on PT-T2-2024-00053, a request for a physical and environmental constraints, or P&E constraints permit to construct a new single-family dwelling unit on steep slopes greater than 25% within the hillside overlay area, including exceptions to the hillside design standards. The proposal includes a type 2 variance request due to the proposed flag lot with the grade exceeding 18%. The applicant also requests a tree removal permit to remove 67 trees, of which 4 are significant, which means they're larger than 12 inches at DBH. The site is at 231 Granite Street. The applicant is Carlos Delgado, architect. The property owners are Brian and Stephanie DeBoer. Comprehensive plan designation is low-density residential. Zoning is RR-.5. The map is 31 1E08DA, and the tax lot is 1800. Before I open the public hearing, I will ask the commissioners if they've had any ex parte contact or if they have done a site visit. Herron.
I have done a site visit. I did have an ex parte email on the subject. I was in a group email. I started to read the email, realize it's in regards to this property, and I stopped. So I don't think it swayed my decision any at all.
Okay.
No prejudice.
Thank you for telling us. McCracken-Jen?
Did not do a site visit. I saw that there was an Ashland.news story this morning, but I did not read it.
And did you have any ex parte contact?
No other ex parte contact.
Mar?
Yeah, I did a site visit today, actually, but no ex parte.
Okay. Perkinson?
No site visit, no ex parte.
Thank you. Phillips?
Site visit and ex parte contact. During my site visit, I was approached by a neighbor and I let them know that I was unable to have a conversation about the property.
Okay. And I did have a site visit and have not had any ex parte contact. I'm not aware of any challenges for bias or prejudgment or personal interest. So I will now open the public hearing and we'll acknowledge the letters we have received from the public. We received letters from Andrea and Dan Weiner, Lynn and Karen Eisenberg, Sarah Sama and Jay Reek, Jane Andrianova, Travis Rigby and Glenn Splythe. I'm sorry if I'm massacring your names. From Dee, Rob, and Sadie Collins. From Paul Rostikas. Monica Settles, Catherine Ellison, MD, Rochelle Jaffe, Peter Killefer, Molly Killefer, Nadine Lefkowitz, Suzanne and Tim Leslie, Jim McCarthy, David Paul Ausler, A. Rosen, Shelley Gilson, Richard and Joyce Stanley. Thank you for submitting your comments to us. Veronica and Derek, go for it.
Yeah, before Veronica starts, pulls up her PowerPoint presentation, I did want to note that this application is for a single-family home on hillside lands, and as the commission recognizes in reading through the application material, this specific property was created prior to the adoption of our hillside ordinance. And as such, it is considered a developable property for one or two homes under state law. The components of the application that Veronica Allen and the applicants and the people that have come forward to provide public testimony will address is the proposed building and hardscaping proposed, the driveway grade design exceptions, tree removal request to accommodate the driveway and the home site. I did want to note that we also received a number of comments relating to the irrigation ditch and the trail use by neighborhood residents. I wanted to clarify that the irrigation ditch is uphill from the home. I saw some comments in the record that the home was going to cut off that ditch. It is uphill from the home between 40 and 70 feet. And I also needed to note that there's currently no public trail access through the property, although historically it's clear that it's been used by neighborhood and the community for recreational uses. And in terms of parks acquisition, the acquisition of pedestrian easements through private properties is identified on the open space trails map that is adopted by the city. This particular site included as having a key trail segment that the Parks Department would like to acquire. It is also noted in our comprehensive plan in Chapter 18.15, Policy 6, that the city would not compel property owners to use eminent domain to take private property for parks purposes, but would negotiate with the property owners in order to acquire those needed connections or parks properties. So the reason I bring that up is the dedication of a public easement is not a criteria of approval related to the development of a single-family home on a legal lot of record. But I know that there's going to be testimony to that effect, so I wanted the applicants to have an opportunity to address it as well. And with that, unless there's any questions on that, I can turn it over to staff.
Any questions? No. Okay, go for it.
Hi, I'm Veronica Allen. I'm an associate planner with the City of Ashland. I've been here about 2 years now, and we're going to talk about 231 Granite. So the application is to construct a single-family dwelling on a currently vacant lot within steep slopes. Slopes are 25% or greater and in the hillside overlay. Due to the topography of the lot and the proposed design, the applicant is proposing a variance to the flag drive standards for the grade specifically, exceptions to hillside design standards, and 67 regulated tree removals. I've also listed the criteria. We'll touch on quite a bit of it, but not every exact thing. So this is kind of the overview of the site. The way you access it is from Granite along that kind of grayish path that's there, and then it comes across those two flags to get onto the property itself. The lot was created as a legal lot of record in its current shape and size of 2.182 acres, which was prior to the city's hillside development ordinance in the 90s. Much of the property is located within slopes that are greater than 25%, with much of the sloped area being 35% or greater. There is a map here of the contours of the property. The closer they are together, the more steep it is, and the further apart, the less steep. I'll also have another map that goes over it as well. although the site has severe slopes, it is acknowledged to be developable, as Brandon stated, for a single-family home or 2 homes or duplex, consistent with the underlying zoning of AMC 18310-090A1A, which is essentially just saying since the lot is existing, it has to be considered buildable. This is a staff photo taken looking to the southwest from where the flag meets the neighboring properties in the east. And no, the photo is not crooked, that's just showing the slope of the property. So to construct the single-family residential home on the property, there is quite a bit of steep topography, especially, well, not especially, but in the existing driveway location, and the home as well, which requires several planning approvals to be able to develop it. The main one is that you need a physical environmental constraint review, or a P&E, to be able to develop in the hillside overlay. There are also 2 requested design exceptions to the hillside standards, as well as a variance to allow the maximum grade of the driveway to exceed what would normally be allowed. And then there is tree removal permits for 67 regulated trees, 4 of which are considered significant trees and 8 of which are dead. So this red outline on the map shows generally about where the disturbance is going to be for the building envelope, as well as the patio and pool area. Currently, the slopes on the lot are about 27%, with the driveway having average slopes of 23%. And then the building envelope as well is about 27%. And you can see on the key here, it's a little bit hard to tell, but the purple color is greater than 35% slopes, and then the pink color would be anything between 25 to 35%. So this does show the whole property, with the red outline being the area of disturbance, which has the least amount of the severely constrained, more than 35% slopes. It's a little hard to tell on this photo on the right, but it says that the driveway is 197 feet long. So that's from the beginning of the flag to the house itself, where the corner is on the garage there. And then there is a picture that kind of shows more details of the residence, the driveway location, the pool. Due to the topography of the lot and the proposed design, there are 2 exceptions that will be needed for hillside standards, including the continuous horizontal plane and the building step backs as they are cut into the hillside. And part of that is the broken roof forms and lines. So the downhill wall height of the structure is 23 feet 10 inches. That's from natural grade to the height of the roof. The wall height itself from natural grade, without counting the roof, is 18 feet 9 inches. And then the eastern portion of the downhill horizontal building plane is a total of 83 feet long, with 5 different planes, 2 of which will require an exception for the offsets. So this is some images taken from the applicant's materials that kind of visualize that a bit better. On the right picture, you'll notice that the left arrow is labeled L1 and the right is labeled L2. L1 is the height from natural grade to the top of the roof that I was talking about, and then L2 would be just for the wall height. So since the downhill wall height to the roof is greater than 20 feet, a 6-foot step back would be required. As proposed, it is currently, that shouldn't say 26, sorry, that should say 23 feet high without the required 6-foot step back. So it would require an exception to be able to be as designed. For the continuous horizontal building plane, it is greater than, or when it's greater than 36 feet in length, it's required to have at least a 6-foot offset. The applicant proposes longer planes without the required 6-foot offset. The way that those are kind of broken out is there are 5 different planes. So the first one is about 22 feet 3 inches, which would be less than the 36 feet, although it does have a 6-foot offset, so that one would meet that. The next section is 16 feet long, also with a 6-foot offset on the north side. And then I believe the way it was describing is around the corner, it's a 4-foot offset on the south side. The next section is then 16 feet 9 inches long, and then followed by a 22-foot 3-inch section. The 2 that are requiring an exception to be approved as designed would be on the southern half. There's one section that is 39 feet long, so more than the 36 feet, with only a 4-foot offset where 6 feet would be required. And then there's another section that is 44 feet long with only a 5-foot offset. So those 2 would require an exception as designed. So this is one of the pages of the floor plans. It was unfortunately not included in the packet, so they were distributed at the beginning of the meeting as part of those extra pages there. The main thing to point out here is that it highlights the offsets a little bit better, just from a different perspective than the 3-dimensional view. You can kind of see more what it's talking about how long it is versus the offset either in or out. And then for the variance, it is a type 2 variance to the flag drive standards. That is because the maximum grade allowed for a flag drive without a variance is only 15%. With a type 1 variance, you can go from 15 to 18%, and then anything that would be 10% or more from that would be a type 2 variance. Since this flag drive is 23% greater than 18, it would be a type 2 variance as long as it does not exceed 200 feet, which it doesn't, it's 197. So the average slope of the driveway is 23% over the flag drive portion. The length of it is 197 feet from the beginning of the flag drive to the structure. And then the portion of the driveway that's in 35% slopes is less than 100 feet as the code would require. And then this photo is looking up generally where the flag drive location would be to kind of give you an idea of what trees are in the area as well as the slope of the lot there. And then this is the slope analysis that the applicant provided. It does only cover the portion of the property that is going to be disturbed or in the area of disturbance. And then the key here, the blue portions are labeled 18%, so they would be the parts that are less than 25% slope. The green color is 25% slope, and then there's a yellow that's about 27%, and then like a orangey color, which is 30%, and then red is 35% or greater. For the tree removals, there is a total of 67 trees that are proposed to be removed. Those are the regulated trees. In the narrative, it does say, well, the narrative and a couple of attachments, it does refer to either 73 or 74 trees. That's because those additional trees from 67 to that number are unregulated. They're less than 6 inches in size, so they would not need a permit to be removed. But of those 67 trees, 4 are identified as significant trees, and then 8 of them would be regulated trees, but they are dead. So this is kind of the tree inventory of the building envelope itself. It's too big to include the driveway on the same slide, so I've kind of split them out a little bit, but the X's indicate the trees that would be removed, and then any other trees in the area would have to be protected. The Tree Management Advisory Committee met last Thursday on March 6th to discuss the tree removal application. They expressed concern with the loss of so many trees on the property, although they recognized that the trees that were proposed for removal were either within the building envelope or very close to the required excavation areas. The most significant tree near the project is a 36-inch madrone and is on adjacent property, and it appears that the tree protection plan provides adequate protection to the root zone. The Tree Management Advisory Committee, or TMAC, recognizes that there's little that they can do to influence the size of the home, but did note that pools are discouraged in hillside development. Mitigation plantings were not discussed in detail by the committee. So there are a couple of revisions to the staff report that need to be corrected. On page 4, it incorrectly states 15.23%, and it should just say 23%. And then on page 2, it incorrectly states that there is a lot coverage variance. The property does meet lot coverage requirements, so that part should be removed. And then, as I stated earlier, there were 4 pages of the applicant's submittals that were unintentionally omitted from the packet materials and online postings. That is the 2 pages for the floor plan, 1 page that has the west and south elevations, and then a site plan that shows the distance from the nearest downhill fire hydrant to the proposed structure. Staff would recommend that the Planning Commission approve the physical and environmental constraints review permit for a single-family dwelling in the hillside overlay, including the requested variance to driveway grade, exceptions to the hillside design standards, and the requested 67 tree removals. Should the Planning Commission concur and approve the request, staff would recommend that the staff report include all of the conditions currently in the staff report, as well as the recommended conditions that I will discuss shortly. So there is one modification, condition number 5. Given the number of trees to be mitigated, this condition would need to be changed to comply with the mitigation standard. We would recommend language along the lines of mitigation trees to be planted on-site, off-site, or payment in lieu at the rate of 1:1 of regulated trees, or regulated tree removal, sorry. There is a duplicate condition. It's number 4L on page 12 of the staff report. It's the same as the one before it, so it just needs to be removed. And then for conditions that we would want to add or recommend adding, condition number 12 would be prior to issuance of a building permit, applicant must provide documentation for the access easement. Condition 13 would be prior to issuance of building permit, applicant must have the retaining wall designed by the project engineer, Thornton Engineering, to conform with AMC 18310-090B. Condition 14 would be prior to submittal of building permit, applicant must provide a surveyor's map that confirms the driveway grade does not exceed 23% and that the length of the portion of the driveway in 35% does not exceed 200 feet. And condition 15, prior to bringing combustible materials on site, applicant must provide documentation of fire hydrant location within 600 feet and access or easement, and fire sprinklers as required by the Ashland Fire Department. That's it.
Do you have those in writing?
The conditions?
Yeah.
I didn't print them out, no.
Russell?
Keep them on screen.
Veronica, thanks for preparing that. Very much appreciated. Could you bump back a slide so that we could see those conditions? Quick question here on condition 14. Does it mean the average grade of the driveway does not exceed 23 and that it doesn't exceed 35% for more than 200 feet? Because I'm reading it a little bit differently than I'm thinking it means.
Yeah, what you said would be the correct interpretation.
Okay. Thank you for that. And just one more quick question here. I believe I saw some questions about the access to a flag lot. Is that what condition 12 is meant to address?
The providing the proof of access easement would address it at least to some degree, because it would show us that they actually have like a legal right to be able to access that parcel through the other parcels.
Perfect, thank you. And then just to drill down a little bit further on that, there's a criteria for flag lot partition, 18.5.3.060, condition C, that says that the flag drive shall be in the same ownership as the flag lot served. Is condition 12 meant to address that?
It's not meant to address that, and that's, typically a condition when you create a lot, you're creating the flag drive with that standard in mind. In this case, we have a driveway situation that's been in the code for a number of years and a pre-existing lot of record. So we're not looking at creating a flag drive. We're looking at the applicant using an existing drive they have access to access an existing lot. So it wasn't the intent to try to go back and adjust requirements to catch something that wasn't applicable at creation of the lot.
Thanks, Derek. And if I'm understanding correctly, it's kind of a grandfathered situation.
I think so. It's, again, if we were creating a flag lot now, we would look at the number of lots served, we would look at who has ownership of the driveway. But when you have a lot that's pre-existing and landlocked and access via a driveway easement, we can't really go in and alter the ownership of the lots along that easement now.
Great, thanks, Derek.
But what you're looking for in condition 12 is the access easement from Granite up to the
Right.
bottom of the flag
Right, just-
lot on this lot,
Documentation that easement is in existence, yes.
and that they have the right to, the
Right.
property that the DeBoers own has the right to use that access from Granite up to the lot.
Yes.
Okay. Susan?
One further clarification on that is that they have sole right, because there was an assertion in one of the letters that there were multiple owners of the easement.
And I think there probably are multiple owners along that easement. It crosses a number of properties, and it would be just confirming that the applicants do have a right to use
Okay,
that
a
access.
right.
Yes.
Okay.
But not necessarily sole access to the entire driveway, but the ability to use the driveway that's in existence.
I have one other question on the trees. There was an assertion that there are 2 significant madrone trees, not one, on the property. Is it possible that one of those was on the adjacent property? Or do you know about, I just was,
I think one of the
Hoping to
neighbors
clarify
has
that.
made that assertion, and we have an exhibit from him that will pass around when he's discussing it. I believe the applicants are prepared to address
okay,
that tree situation.
okay, great, thanks.
I will add too, though, that one of the conditions that was in the staff report is a revised tree management plan. So if there is indeed another tree there that wasn't included on the original inventory, it should be added to that plan.
Eric, did you?
Yeah, back to the access easement. When you're requiring the applicant to provide proof of that, do you feel like the design drawings were designed to tie into the existing driveway that's there, or did the design drawings only go to the edge of this property, not tying into whatever proposed access easement might be given?
As I believe they're intended to improve their driveway down to what's an existing driveway that they could connect to and use.
And does that existing driveway come onto the property?
I don't believe the existing improvements come onto the subject property yet, no. So I think they'll be crossing at those madrone trees in question onto the subject property. And as I believe the neighbor is going to speak to, very near those madrone trees, the end of that flag drive, which is, I believe, 31 or 33 feet wide, comes down right there. And the driveway is just adjacent to that. So it's the transition from the end of that existing drive to the flagpole.
So is that calculated in the whole driveway length?
The 197 is the length on their property
Okay.
that they're improving to connect.
And are they going to are they going to need to do improvements on a neighbor's property that they're going to have easement on to tie into the existing drive? No.
They can speak to that more, but
Okay.
I don't believe the intention is that they further improve those neighbors' properties at this stage.
Thank you.
Okay. We will move on to the applicant's presentation. Who is speaking for the applicant? You have 15 minutes.
Good evening, Commissioners. This evening, we have before you a few members of the project team, including the property owners Brian and Stephanie DeBoer, architect Carlos Delgado, myself, Amy Gunter from Road Planning and Development Services, and...
Could you turn your mic on, please?
Yeah, there you go.
Sorry about that. The landscape architect Shelby Sharon, geotechnical expert Rick Swanson from Marquis and Associates, and civil engineering of the project was by Mike Thornton of Thornton Engineering, and Chris John was the arborist. They are unavailable this evening, and I'm going to give Brian a few minutes to speak.
Thanks, Amy.
You're welcome.
Hello, my name's Brian DeBoer. I'm the one of the two owners. My wife Stephanie of 38 years is the other owner, and we're intending to build a home for our children here that currently live in Portland. And we'd been looking for a lot for quite some time. We really felt this was quite a find, mainly because we too are hikers and cyclists and runners, and we use these trails all the time. And when we saw that there was a trail through the middle of a lot, we were quite ecstatic, okay? So I think it's important to start out by saying my wife and I gave a free easement to the city and Parks and Rec on or about April 1st of 2024 with Rick Lant verbally. That was followed up with an email from Lisa Eldridge. Okay, that email we confirmed in writing that we were giving them a permanent easement for the access of the TID ditch. Okay, it was one of two sections he had told us at the time that had not been completed in that entire ditch trail. And he had also shared that the previous owners that I believe owned the property from like 1996 or something like that was denying access or was asking an exorbitant amount of money for that easement, okay? That easement is still not completed. It's in their hands. Their legal has been working on it. They do reaffirm, but I'm sitting here today saying that is something that we will give forever, okay? And my wife and I did it a year ago, okay? Most importantly, I was born in Ashland Hospital in 1966. I've been part of the community my entire life, okay? We care about this community. My wife and I went to SOU together, okay? And we want our kids to be here as well, okay? So this is a hard thing with the critique that's going on in the community for us, that they don't know what our values are. Our values are much different than what most people would believe, okay? Yes, I am the CEO of Lithium Motors, which is one of the two Fortune 500 companies in Oregon, okay? It was started on the plaza in 1946 in Ashland, Oregon by my grandfather, okay? And I'm proud of that. We took the name Lithia from the spring that sparkles out from our creek just across the street from our home, okay? I think what's less known is that my other grandfather, Louis DeLuca, was a gardener in Lithia Park for 16 years, and that I worked hand in hand with him. He was more influential in my life and who I am as an individual than my other grandfather. So it's hard to sit here and think that we're not here to take out trees, okay? We're not here to hurt the community or the ecosystem that's there. We're here to build a home for our children under the code that's been established by all of us as residents of our own community, okay? And we're not asking for any favors, okay? We're not asking for, though these are exceptions, it's required under a hillside ordinance. We're not asking for anyone that you haven't approved with other people, okay, over the past number of years. So I think it's important to remember that. We also minimize the impact of everything that we're doing. We place the home quite close, as you could see on the screen, to the access point. It's the only access point on the land. We also sunk it down, thinking about those walking on the pathway and thinking about how we drive into the house, that it's integrated into the trees. We're painting it darker colors so it hopefully fades into the shadows of the trees that surround it, okay, which is an important part of what needs to be done, okay? That's how we think, okay? We care about the park, we care about our streams, we care about everything that runs that entire ecosystem, okay? And as such, we're requesting that you approve it tonight if you absolutely can. And we know there's a lot of people here, but please understand, we want the same things as everyone else. Okay, we want to live in a community where we all get along, we all follow those codes, we protect the environment around us. That's why I live in Oregon. That's why my company is still in Oregon. Okay, we're not one of those companies that has run. My company is rated in the top 10% of all socially, environmentally correct companies in the country. And that's an automotive country. Okay, so it's important to remember that. With that, we hope it all goes well, and obviously want our daughter and our new granddaughter that was born 3 weeks ago, and then our son-in-law Brian as well. We call him Brian 2.0. Okay, he's a physician just finishing up his residency at OHSU. And they're planning on moving down, and hopefully someday they can afford to buy the home from us. Okay, that's all I have to say, Amy, but hopefully that lays things out.
Thank you. This is a graphic that shows the location of the property coming up from Granite. The last planning action on it was some property line adjustments that put this lot, this one off the screen, and this lot in their current configurations. This application is primarily before the Planning Commission because of the variance to the driveway grade to connect this legal lot of record to an existing driveway system that serves the adjacent properties to the east between Granite Street and the subject property. The Clary Draw, as my father-in-law pointed out to me last night, this is what this is called. The Clary family lived on this property for a long time, and this was their last lot. They had sold all the other properties. A granddaughter had inherited this lot, and this is one of the last lots within the Clary Draw to be developed. A flag lot is not being created. As Derek stated, this is a private driveway that serves 9 residential properties. The configuration exists. It's called a flag drive because driveways in Ashland that are over 50 feet in length, no matter where they are, fall into the flag driveway construction standards. Doesn't get into meeting all of the standards of flag driveway, but primarily that you have to have a paved fire apparatus access, you have to have the ability to park 3 vehicles, you have to provide a required yard area, and then the grades to which this application seeks a variance. So because of that variance, to have the driveway grade be an average of 23%, it loops in the hillside development application as well. We believe that there's ample evidence in the packet and in this presentation and a depth of understanding of development on Ashland hillside lots amongst the project team, including the architect, the geotechnical expert of record, the civil engineer, the landscape architect, a structural engineer, and the arborist to comply with development according to the Ashland Municipal Code. The proposal is to construct a 3470 square foot home with an additional 1328 square feet as a basement area. The home on the property can comply with all physical and environmental constraints review standards for hillside development and severe constraints for the small areas of 35%. The proposal provides a safe and orderly beneficial development of a pre-existing legal lot of record. When considering that the lot predated the hillside ordinance and all the standards therein, and also predated the standards, this lot predated standards for number of lots accessed off of a private drive, driveway grades. So considering all of those things, it's pretty phenomenal that there's really only one exception to design standards with this application, and the variance, we're stuck with it. There's no way to get around the variance because it's an existing driveway. You have to connect. It's 23%. The development request is completely reasonable. It provides fire hardening, wildfire hazards reduction through the removal of small diameter fuels, removal of ladder fuels, and through the introduction of plants and materials better to withstand wildfire hazards. The minor exception to the horizontal plane of the home buried into the hillside complies with the purpose and intent of the physical environmental constraints chapter. And as a whole, we believe that the ability to develop a single-family home on an over 2-acre parcel is expected for urbanization and development, and is consistent with adopting only clear and objective, the city's requirement to have only clear and objective standards, conditions, and procedures regulating the development of housing, including needed housing, and all houses are considered needed housing. As noted in the packet, the lot coverage is only at about 8%, where the site could have 20% lot coverage. This map is from the city's website. It's pretty much the same graphic that Veronica used in her presentation. The colors represent the percentages of slopes, with the white and the green not regulated. The pink is 25 up to 35, and then the purple is 35. This area is the most buildable area of the property. It's to the north of the Clary Draw area, and it's in the northeast corner, and it is in areas of generally less than 35% slope. The proposed development in this area was driven by utilizing the buildable lands adjacent to where the site is accessed in the northeast corner of the property, with a 60-plus foot setback to the Talent Irrigation District ditch. This is the same slope analysis that you have in your packet, showing the grades of the driveway as it comes up the hill. A geotechnical expert has visited the site, performed test pits, and found that the site is buildable. There were no signs of in any of the test pits. There's no signs of unstable soils, no hillside instability, no excessive soil erosion were observed by that geotechnical expert. To reiterate, the amount of disturbance is substantially less than allowed by the hillside ordinance. The hillside ordinance requires that you take the average slope of the property and then you add 25%, and that gives you how much of a site you can disturb. In this case, 52% of the site was required to be preserved in a natural state, meaning 48% of the site could be disturbed. This proposal requests to only disturb 19.7% of the site. So 18,738 square feet, whereas closer to 47,000 square feet could be disturbed. So substantially less area of disturbance is proposed. The proposed development minimizes fire hazards through the implementation of a fire management plan, minimizes slope failure through the implementation of appropriate drainage and retaining wall construction, and a feasible stormwater management plan through proper drainage and conveyance through the utility easements to the city's stormwater system. The development preserves and protects the rural residential characteristics of the property and the surrounding properties, and the proposed structure is stepped into the hill using structural retaining walls to lessen the impact of the structure. The approval criteria that the Planning Commission shall consider, according to 18.310.050 letter C, is that the existing development of surrounding area and the maximum development permitted by this ordinance shall be considered, and it can be found that this home is situated in a manner that minimizes hillside disturbance by limiting cuts and fills for construction, limited site disturbance through the creation of small area of development in comparison to what could be developed. As I already stated, the proposed structure utilizes a cut foundation and cuts the house into the hillside, greatly diminishing the height on the downhill wall and reduces the mass. This is the same graphic that you have in your packet, but we called out the downhill building height. The ordinance states in 18-310-090, letter E, number 2, letter C, that its downhill wall height is less than 20 feet. I know staff is including the roof framing in it, but the graphic in the ordinance doesn't include the roof. So we're sort of stuck in this quandary of, I guess, interpretation. The code says downhill wall height. The code also defines building height. That includes roofing. And so I would say that downhill wall means wall, not including your roofing, which is less than 20 feet in this case. Similarly, we include graphic in your packet, but it's including the natural grade line as called out more clearly. And then this section is what would appear to be the tallest. These are 2 separate wall masses with a deck breaking up the 2, and then 18'9", where there's no deck breaking up the massing of the wall height. This resident utilizes low pitch roofs, walkout decks onto the 4 below, and this all reduces the building mass and limits impacts to nearby areas. As being cut into the hill, it reduces the amounts of fill. The linear roof line also minimizes the massing and scale with a membrane type of roof or metal roof to allow a flatter roof or something that's a low pitch. The structure substantially exceeds all required setbacks in the zone, which are typically 20 feet in the front, 6 feet on the sides, 10 feet in the rear, and we've got more than 30 feet setbacks in the front and sides, and then 100 and something in the rear and to the other side. So substantially, greatly exceeds all setbacks. This is the same graphic you have in your packet. And this shows just how buried the back side of the house is. So this is the natural grade line running back here and shows just how deeply the house will be set into the hillside. This is a graphic from the ditch trail, which is about 61 feet away from the back of the house. And what you will quote unquote see from the trail, you'll see the roof of a house. So instead of having a tall structure with multiple stories cutting up the hill, blocking the view, trail users are looking essentially at the rooftop of a house. Okay, so trees. I tried to have a color-coded graphic, but it kept killing my computer, so I'm going to do my best to point out to you guys where we've got. So the tree ordinance, we've talked about it before. It's kind of scrambly. Trees over 6 inches have to be inventoried and called out in the packet. Trees over 12 inches, if they're deciduous, are considered significant. Trees over 18, if they're conifers, are considered significant. The tree removal speaks to only those trees, but we have to talk about all the trees. So it gets people really upset and angry because essentially you're saying you're removing 67 trees of a property. The good thing about this property is that there are hundreds of trees on the property. If you take just this one small 1/5 portion of the property and multiply it out, you've got hundreds of trees just based on this coverage in this area. So that being said, we've got 2 significant trees up here. We've got a significant tree here. And then we have 2 more significant trees here. There are some dead trees, and the arborist report notes that there's die-off of the fir trees, that there's, this is a dead tree, and it's in small grayed out font, but this is a dead tree, this is a dead tree. There's 13, 14, and 15 are dead. This tree's dead, these 2 are dead. So there's quite a few dead trees that should be taken out. And then there was a tree that did not make the survey, which one of the neighbors commented about. It is started writing my notes about it somewhere. It's like a 36-inch madrone tree, And it is right on the adjacent property line. And so according to the landscape architect, the driveway could shift slightly to clear that tree and still provide protections for it. Okay, let me get reorganized, sorry.
Would you wrap it up?
I can. I'm gonna go fast. There's a wildfire prevention control plan in your packet. Provides for fire hardening, essentially through new materials that meet new fire code standards. The houses today are not like the houses in the past, and they're built more safely, and then with the wildfire reductions. This is a cool photo I found from 1969. Look at how much you can see of this property, because all the trees haven't grown up. But essentially, this is the driveway here for Clary's Draw going up the hill. This is the big, like 5,400 square foot house. When you come up, you turn, go here, and this property is like right in this area here. This is the barn that's down there. But we believe that it can be found that that there's no major specimen trees or trees of stellar quality that would necessitate preservation and redesign of the driveway, the building envelope area, or the proposed residence. For each tree being removed, there's a substantial number of large diameter madrones on this property and within 200 feet of the property. For every pine tree removed, there's substantial numbers of pines same size on this property as well as the adjacent properties. This is a graphic of the easement in question. I know it's not really in your guys' court, but the easement was it's Journal Voucher 94-04302 for anyone interested in seeking that out is available as a public record. But this drawing shows essentially the easement coming up to the property. This is a graphic showing the driveway location going between the trees. This is a picture of the large rock that is in about the middle of the building footprint area. And then I have some quick graphics of the structure that I'll click through. This is the entry. This is the south west corner. This is looking at it directly south. So we believe it can be found that the project team, including geotechnical experts, structural and civil engineering experts, landscape architecture, a local arborist with professional design, a longtime local contractor who's built other hillside homes, that this property can be built to comply with the standards for hillside development, tree removal, complies with lot coverage, and there's only truly one minor exception requested, accepting the variance, which there's not really any way around the variance. I think to answer Commissioner Herron's question, I have a graphic of the driveway. I think you were asking something about it. Is what we're connecting to improved?
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, so where the pavement stops is essentially where this new pavement will take off from. The easement language says that it shall be returned to an original condition. So we're assuming that just means a pavement overlay post-construction. The easement allows people to go on to the other properties. Like that's what the easement does. So it's not like someone's property's being improved, not to their knowledge, because it's an easement. But this graphic, I tried to end at roughly about where I was guesstimating the current conditions end. And so this is the piece that's getting inserted.
Thank you very much. Commissioners have any questions for the applicant? Susan?
Why are the step backs designed not to be adequate?
So there's, how I understand the ordinance, there's only the horizontal plane not being met by having a 6-foot offset. The reason for that is so that it's not pushing further into the hill. I think there's a graphic that shows here. Maybe not. The hill's about 33% right back here. So as you go further up the hill, it gets steeper and steeper going up towards the ditch. And so it was to not push into the hillside further, since it's buried so far into the hill.
Can I respond to that too?
Yeah, Carlos.
One of the issues that
Could
we
you
had.
introduce yourself, please?
Oh, it's Carlos Delgado, 366 Liberty Street. When we designed the home, we looked at the intent of that code applied to different style buildings. And we feel like this more contemporary style building has these offsets that meet what the design intent of having the variation, but not having to have the full 6 foot setback. And if you go back to the 3D image, we feel that it meets the intent of the code with the variegation when you look up at the house. And the other piece that I wanted to mention is most of the applications we've done in the past have to do with the breaking up the massing for the public right-of-way. And the only public view you have of this is actually on a path that's not really actually a public right-of-way. It's actually an easement through the property.
I have to say I heard more than one answer there. So one had to do with intent, one had to do with excavation. Why not just make it conform?
That's exactly why there's exceptions built into the ordinance, is that when there's situations that make it difficult to conform, such as topography, then you work through that. And then as far as the design goes, there's uses of different material, different scale of the breaking up the mass. And so we believe that it meets not only the purpose and intent of the ordinance, which is a design thing, but also, more importantly, the ordinance focuses on safety, hillside design, hillside safety, cutting into the hills, removal of material, that sort of thing. So the hillside ordinance is really heavily focused on disturbance and hillside slope safety. And then there's the design aspect as well. They can both be true.
Okay, but you did more than once emphasize that only one variance was being asked for, which is laudatory, but this is not a variance. It just seems to me an exception that could be fairly easily addressed, a point of view only. I'm not convinced by your argument.
I'm just curious, was any consideration given to designing a home that's slightly less than twice the size of the average 3-bedroom home in Ashland? Or including an ADU?
So the average home in this neighborhood is 3,153 square feet of 7 homes. People can argue, but I use the assessor's data for 233 Granite, 223 Granite, 227 Granite, 243 Granite, 237 Granite, 235 Granite, 234 Strawberry, and 230 Strawberry. Just those 7 homes, your average is 3,153 according to Jackson County. I'm not including garages, I'm not including accessory units. And so their home being as a single story, what's the square footage of the single story again?
3470.
3470 is not that much greater
10%.
over what the average of just 7 houses is. I didn't do the total 200-foot impact area, I just did 7. And if you look at Granite Street historically, where are the biggest houses in Ashland historically for over 120 years? Granite Street. So it's not that out of line. And like I said, according to Jackson County Assessor's data, which is publicly available information, this house is not that much larger than the average home just in this little 7-house neighborhood.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Amy and Brian, thanks for the presentation. Just a quick question here about the driveway. I'm trying to imagine, I drove my truck up to the property yesterday. I have a big truck and I envision dump trucks and emergency vehicles and those sorts of things. How do you envision those types of vehicles navigating up and down the driveway? And what will be done with the shared driveway after the building is complete? You know, I imagine people aren't going to stay on the road sometimes potentially, and parts might break off. And so just wanted to hear your guys' thoughts about that.
The easement itself speaks to repairing the driveway to an original condition. So essentially, the driveway has to be repaired to the condition it's in. There's not a discussion in that easement language about like what happens in the future. There's not a homeowners association or anything like that. So I would presume that the neighbors have to band together to pave it if it needs repavement. As far as, I pulled up the graphic that shows the site area. This area of disturbance is largely to create a pad for construction of this house. And that's why it's sized like this. And then this area provides enough adequate room for visitors, guests, that sort of thing. There's parking within the garage. Carlos met with the fire marshal on site at least once, and they've had numerous conversations about it. Because it's a pre-existing legal lot of record, the fire marshal has to make some exceptions to the rules, but he didn't seem to take issue with anything that was proposed. And I believe this driveway graphic shows what the fire marshal indicated. Essentially, there's a hydrant here, and he knows it's on 237's lot, but he said in an event of a fire, Ashland Fire and Rescue hooks up to available hydrants. And then there is a quasi hammerhead provided that met his distance requirements, and then the home is required to be fire sprinkled as well.
And a pull-out along the driveway within the property was required by him.
Great. Thanks, Carlos and Amy.
Welcome.
Eric?
Thank you for the presentation. The big concerns I have are around the driveway. So if you go back, you have a photo of the house down below. Right there. The driveway at that point is roughly 23 degrees, is that correct? Not the whole average where you go up and it flattens off and all
The
that.
finished grade will be 23%.
23%.
Yeah.
Has any consideration been given to a runaway vehicle or headlights going directly into that house coming down this driveway?
I don't think so, because at least runaway vehicles, this is like less steep than where Iowa comes up and meets Terrace. It's less steep than much of Morton. And so like those city streets, there's not concerns about runaway vehicles. There's not like a guardrail required by code. So it hadn't been factored in, no.
So the letter I see from Mark Shea that was included in your package says, Carlos, it was good to meet with you today. As a recap to our discussion, for an alternate, the fire department turnaround, I'll consider a turnout designed by Jackson County development standards. Has that been done?
Designed to the Jackson County standards.
And that was what you proposed here with this?
It's on the landscape plans, yes.
It's on the landscape plans. So they don't require a turnout. They're going to drive up the driveway in the fire truck, park, and they'll drive back down. Okay. So back to the easement question I had. The driveway can't exceed a certain length due to the angle. And the driveway proposed is really close to that. And I wonder if the length of the driveway, the 197 feet, includes tying it into the existing road. And was that factored in the 197 feet length?
I think the issue has to do with the 200-foot for driveways exceeding.
Yes.
So the variance request would be to bypass that whole section of code, because the driveway leading to this site is already more than 200 feet in length and is already more than 18%.
So we can't now make a driveway less than 200 feet in length connecting to the end of it, nor can we make it less than 18% because the grade of the property doesn't allow for such. So
I think what's your driveway length right now in your
the
packet?
driveway length from where it connects?
From the property.
Could I ask you a
Yeah.
clarification? You're asking about the length from the property line?
I'm asking, yeah, when staff gave their report that they got from you, it said the driveway length was 197
That's from
feet long.
that's from the property line to the work area of the vehicles parking at the top, connected to the turnaround. So I guess my question to you is, are you asking about the development for that little section that connects it to the existing driveway?
Yeah. Was that included in the driveway?
No,
Okay.
that's not included.
Okay.
It's just the driveway length on the flag.
On this property, even
On
though, but in order to get that driveway to tie into the existing road, you've got to extend it further to the existing
correct.
road.
That's correct.
And that part was not included in your calculation of 197 feet.
No.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else have any questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
We'll now move on to members of the public. We have a whole stack of speaker request forms here. I'm going to limit the members of the public to 3 minutes each. I'll call your name, and please come up and sit at the table. And I'll call 2 people at a time, so one's in waiting. And that will make it more efficient. Oh, okay, that's good. Brandon points out that we can also use the podium. If you're more comfortable coming up to the podium there, you can do that, or you can come here if you have slides or technical issues to present. Okay, first person is Len Eisenberg. Second person is Ben Bellinson. Next person is Paul Rostivics. Rostigas. Thank you.
Chair Brenner, Mr. Eisenberg is going to discuss these images that I'll pass around to you.
Okay.
Go.
Go for your 3 minutes.
Okay. Len Eisenberg, 223 Granite Street. Referring to this planning action submitted by the applicant contains significant errors and omissions that are crucial to the decision that you will make. And we ask that the city decline to grant the approval on the proposal submitted. If I can direct you to 18.3.10.090 of the applicant's submission, that's Development Standards for Hillside Lands, Section A, Subhead 1, Buildable Area. The applicant states in their submission, quote, "There are no slopes greater than 35% within the areas of proposed development." However, if you compare that to the actual slope site analysis map included in their submission, see that that statement is false. And I've made a map overlay where I overlaid page 33 of the PDF, which is the slope analysis map, with the overlay of the building envelope. I think that's page 29. So if you can pass that around, you can see when they overlay that there are at least 4 areas within the proposed development area which are greater than 35%. So on the one hand, they're saying there's no 35%, but their own data are contradicted by that. So now I'm a simple guy. I read the code in the city, and I think that should mean what it says. And if you look at Hillside Lands 18.3.10.090 in the city code, says slopes greater than 35% are unbuildable, only accepted per 18.3.10.090H, which defines the criteria for a variance. There are 4 criterion that need to be all satisfied before a variance will be granted. I note that the applicant has not asked for a variance. And if I read the plain language of the code, they can't build on that 35% without a variance, but no variance has been requested. So to me, that says, you can't do that. And I also would note that in several places in the applicant's submission, we talk about the experience of the design team and the construction team. They built on hillside lands numerous times. And also that when they did the driveway standards, they were very careful about the slopes. But somehow they all noticed or failed to notice that there's areas of 35% within the building envelope. Now the exceptions to the development standards in 10.09H, I won't take up the time to read them to you, but in our view, the plain language of criterion 2 and criterion 3 are not satisfied by any variance that would be submitted. Because there are other places that can be built on the property that are not 35%, which would require a much smaller home. And we think that's the view that the commission should take. Can't build there on that 35%. Now, if the city has a long-established and transparent practice of allowing some 35% slope to be built on without a variance, and hearing the staff say, well, there's a little bit of 35% in there, well, why does the applicant not refer to that policy? And if one exists, is it written down anywhere? And why is it not included in the proposal?
Please wrap up.
Okie dokie. Well, the other issue was about this 32-inch tree, this big madrone. It's on the northeast corner. And it was not on any of the tree removal maps or any of the plots. And it's in an area that is key. And it's kind of hard to imagine why they would have missed that one. But it's right where the driveway comes out of their flag. So I think that does need to be addressed. We had a surveyor out there today, Kurt Chappell from Pacific Crest Surveying. We wanted to know where those trees were at the northeast corner of the flag, if they are on the DeBoer's property or Mr. McLaughlin's property. And it's evident that the property line goes right through those trees. So half of those trees, those 3 that are on the northeast corner of the 32-inch ghost madrone, the double stem madrone, 10 and 12-inch, and the 16-inch oak, those are half owned by Mr. McLaughlin.
Please wrap up.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Paul
Rosticus.
Rosticus. And then after that, Gia Laser? Go ahead.
I'm Paul Rosticus. I live at 436 Grandview Drive, where I've been for almost a quarter of a century, and both I and my family and friends have been frequent users of the ditched road and the ditch trail, and my big concern was about access to the ditch trail itself, and I think with the easement that's been announced by Mr. Rohr, it's a non-issue. So thank you very much for the time, and you could ignore the email I sent yesterday. Things have changed. I've learned a lot since I sent that email yesterday. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
I'm Gail Lacer, 503 Strawberry. Oh, how do I? Right there. Gail Lacer, 503 Strawberry. I think I represent hundreds of people that hike that trail weekly. It is a very popular trail. It's one of the very few flat trails in Ashland, and so therefore people that are getting a little up in age, like myself, are using that consistently. And though I heard about an easement being gifted, which is very generous, and I appreciate it, from what Brian DeBoer said, I really appreciate that. However, I don't see it in stone yet. And I think the city needs to guarantee that access. I've been walking it personally for over 20 years. And I know that a lot of people have been walking it for much longer than that. It's a very important trail in Ashland. So please do not let it slip away into private property. Thank you.
Thank you. Gus Janeway. And after him, Barbara Shore.
Pass. Barbara.
Thank you.
You want to call a second person?
Yep. John Richards.
I'll pass, thank you. Do I hit any? Red light's good. Hi, my name is Gus Janeway. I live up on Ashland Mine Road. I've been on the other side of this, making an appeal for variances. And I think I know a little bit about where the applicant is coming from. I have, subsequent to that application, which was successful, that was a long time ago, I've seen then, and I was doing it on behalf of a third party, I've seen how once the line moves, it stays there and does not retreat. And I've seen how once that line moves, the wrong kind of people will take advantage of that. And so I've been thinking a lot about lines as you've been, as this presentation's been going on. There's a lot of lines on paper. As a builder friend of mine said, you know, hey, the architect's drawings are just lines on paper. That's a wonderful thing. They can still be moved. I hate to say, turn this down. I don't know what stamps you have access to for these applications, but I would say this is a great draft. This is a good start. It needs a lot of work. I would, and I have a lot of notes here, but that in and of itself says a lot, perhaps the fact that it's so many. I would draw most attention to the statement that variance to the standards to facilitate development should be the minimum necessary to alleviate the difficulty. So I would hope that, and it seems like you're already doing this with the wisely worded questions I hear you ask already. I would hope that you hold that standard to every part of the variance. It seems like several variances applied for here. And given the number of, I'm not going to go through all these notes here. You know how to read this thing. You know where to pick up on omissions. You know where to pick up on conflicts, clear conflicts. You know where to pick up on, where the staff recommended, the number of staff recommended modifications. That's significant. That's normal. You have a draft in front of you. I would definitely send it back to the drawing board. Let's move those lines around. Let's figure out a way, possibly, that this family can live on this lot, which they're apparently legally allowed to do, and that's fine, and they seem like really nice people. But let's send it back to the drawing board. There is no rush here. I don't think there's a rush. Brian certainly didn't indicate that. He said that the baby's pretty young. I don't know if they're moving immediately. Particularly in line with the fact that there being no rush, I would draw back on a quote from an excellent instructor that I had once in a boat building school. His name was Jack. He said, "Nobody remembers how fast you did a job. They only remember how well you did a job." This is an opportunity to do this development well, intelligently, and in keeping with the spirit of the law, which, to remind myself, is to minimize impact. Thank you.
Thank you. Denise Kester and Kent McLaughlin.
Can I speak here?
Sure.
I have been walking the ditch trail for, I realized, 45 years, which kind of tells my age. But anyway, and I was made me feel really good to know that you're gonna protect that. And like Gaia, I really want it on the books, because we've seen this happen on our trails where houses get built and then the fences go up and us walkers who've been walking there forever can't access it anymore. So that's really all I needed to say or wanted to say, but I love the way that it's down the hill and it doesn't impact. I am concerned about those large trees, especially the madrones. I'm concerned about the animals. There's a lot of bear up there that are also impacted. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Kent McLaughlin?
Yes.
And after him, Julia Janeway?
Good evening. I'm getting tired. I don't know about you, but it's a lot of information to have poured through 46 pages of it. I spent a lot of time doing it. Letters have come your direction from our neighbor. Oh, Kent McLaughlin, 234 Strawberry Lane, immediately adjacent on the north side to lot 1800. And I realize that the DeBoers are, what would I call it, woven tightly into the fabric of this city, this town, and have given a lot to it. So, and what they built down across from the park, I think is, I really like the looks of it. However, I have some concerns. Lot, slope of lot, all that sort of thing. I'm not going to detail because a lot of our neighbors around us have sent you letters that have plenty of detail in terms of looking at exceptions and variances. My wife, Pamela, and I, we really hope that the commission will put as much effort into allowing variances or exceptions for needed housing, affordable housing, which I'm sure is a part of the mission of this city. We've lived here over 20 years. We've hiked that trail a lot. I was really glad to hear Kurt Chappelle was the surveyor that came out today. I was really glad to hear him say that he helped move that forward to the Parks and Recreation. When we moved to this adjacent lot, I'm sorry, I'll try not to go too long here. We moved to this adjacent lot 3 years ago and were assured, we didn't do our homework, we were assured that that lot that is 1800, number 1800, is likely never to be built upon. It hadn't been for 35 years. We'd seen many people come and go, and then they'd leave, and there was no offer. Then we heard that the Parks and Recreation was going to buy it. We don't really know what happened to that, okay? We heard that they went into contract, but something didn't go. Anyway, we received our notice of application, I guess it's called. We live on a different road coming in than the Granite Street that you've been hearing about. We had no posting on our road, and yet we are the closest piece of property next to. We got our notice in the mail 14 days ago. I'm asking that we have some extended time to have our surveying completed. We have a number of trees, as you've seen in the photographs, that are on our property, or mostly on our property, and we want that designated. There are questions about where that easement ties into their land, and I think some of your questions about how far down does that need to go to tie into Granite Road, or the private road coming up there. I also want to say, our home is 27. Here are the three homes that surround this possible 4,800 square foot home, not including the pool. The one immediately to the west is 2,034 square feet. The one immediately to the east is 2,130, did I say 20,000? I didn't mean to, 2,034 square feet. The one immediately to the east is 2,130 square feet. Our home is 2,700 square feet, okay? I wanted to kind of give you that. What she was quoting to you, I'm pretty sure are all the homes that run down to Granite off of the easement. We're up above that easement. It is our easement also, so there is an overlap.
Please wrap up.
Okay. There are major trees where they want to tie in to the easement, and we do not, we believe we own those trees, and the surveyor today said, yeah, they're really all on your tree, all on your side, or at least halfway on your side. We do not want those big madrones taken out in order to facilitate their driving. If they can figure out a way to navigate around, then they will have a driveway put in, I'm assuming, which I really will abhor and really worry about run away down it. We just had 23 inches of snow on our property. I cannot imagine that, anyway, you don't go anywhere up there, and particularly with a 23 to 27% grade road. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Julia Janeway from 2000 Ashland Mine Road, wife of Gus Janeway, who just spoke. And I wish I was here with an intricate legal argument, but I'm just going to add an emotional argument to the ones that have already been made about the trail. I've been thinking a lot about wealth lately, and even before this issue came up, I was walking the ditch road the other day, as we call it, the ditch road trail, and thinking about how grateful I was about that trail. I literally get in my car and drive down and walk that trail almost every day, sometimes twice a day, and I'm coming from Ashland Mine Road. And like Gaia said, you know, there have been so many instances, and I've lived here for 27 years now, and there have been so many instances in which I'm going to say community access has been cut off to the very things that we love about our little town. And walking space is one of them. And so I just add my voice to those that say that is valuable to us beyond measure.
Thank you very much. Douglas Smith and Zahara Solomon.
Hello, thank you for considering all this, doing your jobs or your voluntary jobs. I'm Doug Smith. My wife and I live at 60 Granite Street. We've lived in Lower Granite Street since 1977. So we've seen a lot of things change, and I encourage a lot of you to look up the Cooper development back in the early 80s and see how we had to deal with somebody's house just got flooded because of erosion. Nobody's talked about erosion in land removal. None of this is meant to disparage the applicants at all. I trust that they do have great values, and they've probably given to this city in many ways. But that's something that's social. It's irrelevant from the application. And I want to say something that is also social, and it may be irrelevant because there's not an ordinance, but living on Lower Granite Street, there was a development at 329 Granite that was approved by this committee and then approved by the council. And it has caused such great excavation. And I have to say, in a social sense, stress to my wife and I. We live on Granite Street, and I'm not kidding. I stopped counting at 2,000, just the one-way trips that are loaded with dump trucks after excavation. And then there's another 2,000 that go up with fill, gravel, and cement. And they're still going. This was approved several years ago. And what I want to say is there's a lot of effects of this, and I really want the commission to take its responsibility strongly and stay within the rails, like somebody else has said. There are many such lots in this area that are buildable legally. And this other development, I have pictures of walls that were not approved in the original commission approval, and it was given to the council. And what happened was then there had to be, because they couldn't really follow through on the driveway, and it was a slope, again, something like this, and they had to build the retaining walls beyond even the variance that was given to them. And then there was a modification to that to still complete the project. And then there was a second level of modifications to the modifications. And I'm saying this because you put the planning staff in a bad position. They had to do that without any public input, without any bringing it back to the commission or to the city council. So what I'm saying is, you people really, and I do appreciate what you're doing, you need to do your job. And we need to watch for those rails that have been put into place and not allow a variance of this extreme altitude. I feel badly for the people that I'm speaking against their project, but I feel that we need to deal with things, say the fire extension. On the other project, they put in sprinklers. Who's going to maintain those sprinklers for more than 10 years? Okay, we have land that needs to be protected. There are many exceptions that we can make, but why are we doing that to laws that have existed for a long time? I want to work to make sure those laws are in place and this never happens again like it did at 329. And I expect you guys to do that as well. Why are we doing it, and how is it helping our community? And I do feel badly for the applicants because I will speak to them, I speak against the project and not against them personally. There's much more to talk about. I'll try to not do that right now, except that 197 foot driveway, I think should take into account the other driveway, which is not a street. It's not a city street. It's a driveway that comes off of Granite Street. And it should be considered in that total of 197 feet. I have pictures if
please
anybody
wrap
wants to
up.
see. And I'd be happy to show you of another property that it was approved and has caused great distress to my wife and I and several other people on the lower Granite area. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Zahara Solomon, and I live on 66 Woolen Way. I'm down off of Nursery, and I've been walking this trail for 25 years. And I'm here for a myriad of reasons, mainly the protection of the trail. As a citizen of Ashland for 25 years, it's extremely disheartening to encounter right-of-ways that are blocked. And so I would ask you to not approve this structure until that has been settled with the city. I think that's why there is such a large turnout tonight. And a lot of community members who couldn't come that wanted to come because it was kind of a last minute awareness of what was happening. Like the person who was here before me, I'm very disappointed in what you guys have approved for our city. There's some just like totally ugly cement blocked walls all up and down the hills. And I understand, you know, you're trying to do the best you can, but it's ugly. Like people move here and they're like, what happened here? Like, I think this destroys the character of our town. I think it destroys the aesthetic of our community. And I mean nothing against the family wanting to build this. They have done a lot for our community. I'm very grateful for their support of Mount Ashland. But you know, when they built that structure down by the park, that just was completely inappropriate. And it just, that I think is a red flag that triggered a lot of people. The access to the trail being taken away, or it's not guaranteed protection, that triggered a lot of people. I think the idea that in the city report, it says 74 trees. 74 trees, people, think about that. Do you have 74 trees on your property line? Would you want to take out at least 4 old growth trees? they're rearranging the stone structure of this land that, as people have said, we all thought that the Parks was trying to acquire this. We thought it was going to be another access trail like the Heart and Hands Trail and some of those other trails that go down to Granite Street. People do hike this all the time. If you haven't visited the site, please visit the site. And if you haven't visited the trail, please walk this trail. Please take a look at this land and please consider the impact that this structure is going to have, not just on the trail. I appreciate that they've tried to set it into the land, they've tried to lower the sight line, but what about the neighbors? What about the traffic? I mean, those poor people who live at the bottom of the driveway. I mean, this is going to impact a lot of people. And lastly, to wrap up, I just want to say that the size of this house is not, it's over large. And I understand the family has a lot of money and maybe in their structure of living, this is an appropriate size. But if you're going to build a structure like that, I would hope that there would be some like affordable housing offset somewhere. Who's going to ever be able to afford to buy this house if they ever move? And so I just would like to advocate for that, and please continue pushing ahead stronger on affordable housing for our town. We desperately need it. Thank you.
Thank you. Jay Reek and Sarah Sammy. Oh, I'll get them right one of these days.
It's okay. No one ever.
Good, 8:45.
Okay, you can each have 3 minutes.
We hope to just take 3 minutes between the two of us. We want to be efficient. I'm Sarah Sammy.
I'm Jay Reek, and we live at 230 Strawberry Lane.
And we have provided written comments, so in the interest of time, we won't read through our statement. We do recommend that the Planning Commission not approve this project. And we also want to say that we have every confidence that the home would be absolutely stunning and beautiful. We have trust in the contractors. We've worked with some of them. We appreciate what Brian DeBoer said tonight. That was a very heartfelt statement, and that means a lot. This has nothing to do with the applicants. It's simply about this property. We feel this is not the place to build this home, only because of the property itself and everything that's been discussed tonight with the risks and the trees and the driveway, which we're not sure is really 23% average. It seems like it is higher than that.
And again, focusing on the application and looking at the property, the application as it stands, it's not complete. It doesn't address multiple pieces of information required by Ashland Code. And the requested variances, they're unreasonable and they should be denied. The conditions per code, those are self-imposed conditions by the applicants. And the ALUO specifically states that this is a reason to not grant a variance. Additionally, the negative impacts of the development on this property are much greater than the benefits, which again, the ALUO also calls out as a reason not to grant a variance. We feel that this is a chance for the applicants to do the right thing and not proceed with development on this lot. This lot was stated to be preserved as part of the Ashland City Parks, Trails, and Open Space for the 2024 plan. And on the map from 2024, just for reference, that's subject property at number 11.
And given how committed the applicants are to the city of Ashland, we strongly believe they are, and we so appreciate what they've done for this town. We actually feel they should donate the lot to the city for open space as planned, especially just given how much emotion there is around this, or sell it back to the city as previously arranged, or we even know that there are some neighbors who would be willing to buy it and then donate it to the city to remain as open space.
We also request, like Kent requested, that after tonight's meeting, the record still be left open to submit additional written testimony, argument, or evidence.
Thank you for your time. We genuinely hope that you make the right decision for the greater good of the community.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. You're a good team. David Paul Ausler and Irene Sims. Then, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Paul Osler. I live at 252 Strawberry. I would like to stress three things. The first thing is that that area is a gorgeous area that we all enjoy going through. That's the reason that Parks and Rec had identified it as something that they wanted to buy. There are 17 properties around that they wanted to pick up, and that's one of them. There are innumerable people who use that trail, and I've actually not been in any concern that that trail would get closed. I closed it once for about 15 minutes trying to move a beehive, and that's the closest that I've ever gotten to being lynched in my life. So, so I mean, I do think that it's a little bit strategic that it comes out that that they're going to give an easement as if that's a balancing thing to getting all these exceptions and to thwarting the will of the Park and Rec Department. When I rebuilt my house in the early 2000s, there was one root of a tree, a single tree that was in the way, and I had to go through all sorts of conniptions to build it. Mark Knox, who was, I think, worked for the city at that time, came to my property and told me that there were some areas above 25% and that I couldn't do anything there. So the goalposts have been moved. They've been moved for somebody who has great assets and is able to hire the right people to tell you guys the right things. And there's no offense meant, but I totally agree with Doug, who mentioned about the debacle on 329 Granite. Things need to move back towards the citizenry here. It's just gotten way out of control. And I would also sort of emphasize that, this was supposed to be parkland. The applicant has the means to make it parkland. He's really tied in the community. We heard all about his family and his granddad. That's really nice. I hope he does the right thing, or I hope the community screams. Thanks.
Thank you. Craig Anderson and then Brandon Ross.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Craig Anderson. I'm representing Rogue Advocates tonight. Their address is P.O. Box 624 in Ashland. And it's already been mentioned by a previous speaker that they would like the record left open. And that's why I'm here tonight, is to get Rogue Advocates' name on the record, and also to ask that per ORS 197, the record be left open for a minimum of 7 days, so we can submit written testimony. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
I think this is still on. Brandon Ross. I live at 189 Westwood in Ashland here. Our family walks that trail every day, and I was here primarily out of concern for access to the trail. And it's great that the DeBoer family is promising access, and I hope the city follows through on making that happen. The city has also promised us a swimming pool for the last 20 years and hasn't made that happen. So hopefully the grandchild is going to be a swimmer. That's all I can say. But the ordinances exist for a reason, I guess, is what I'll say. And they exist for properties exactly like this. And the DeBoers have been wonderful and supportive members of the community. And one of the things of when you have access to those kind of resources is that you actually have the resources to comply. And this parcel deserves compliance with the existing regulations. And I think that there's been a little fudging on the length of the driveway. I think that this project could go through, but I think they could do it by following the rules. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Okay, that concludes the list of speakers who have requested to be able to speak before us, unless there's anybody else that wants to talk. If there is, please fill out the pink form over there. Seeing no one else, we'll move on to the applicant's. We'll move on to the applicant's rebuttal.
Do we rebut if the record's being left open?
Yeah.
I don't know if I'll be able to get to all of it in 5 minutes, but I'll do my best. Want to be very, very clear. There's one variance requested, and it's to the grade of the driveway to access a pre-existing legal lot of record. The only way to get to this driveway, or to this property, is to use that driveway. The driveway is from Granite Street to the lot, substantially over 200 feet, but the 200-foot rule is talking about variances to driveway grades not greater than 18%. This driveway is already greater than 18%, so the 200-foot rule is irrelevant. We are dealing with a situation that's much greater than 200 feet in length already. So the variance request is to the driveway grade to access a legal lot of record that requires access. And the only way to do it is using this driveway. Per our civil engineer, Mike Thornton, the average grade of that driveway is 23%. The second is an exception to design standards only. That's the horizontal building plane. And the purpose and intent of the hillside design standards speaks to protecting the natural characteristics, environmental resources, and aesthetic qualities. We believe that the design and the minor exception to the horizontal plane does exactly that. There's substantial findings starting on page 15 within your packet, but it essentially goes through the east-west linear slope of the property, how it's steeper, or north-south linear in length, steeper east to west. Pushing the house further up the hill requires greater disturbance of the hillside slopes, and that the design standards really get to an aesthetic quality, and this house being buried in the hillside is not highly visible to adjacent properties or to properties outside of this private driveway system, and we believe that the standards are met and addressed in these findings. It is not a variance to build on 35% slopes. As noted in this presentation and within the slope analysis provided in your packet, the error in the one sentence in the planning commission has obviously, or in the planning packet has obviously been acknowledged by the project team. It is a legal lot of record. Building on slopes of more than 35% is allowed in the hillside ordinance. It's called severe constraints development. The difference between basic hillside lands and severe constraints lands is that you have to have a geotechnical report, which is provided in your packet. The legal access easement's 15 feet in width, 7.5 feet on either side of the center line of that easement. So that is where the driveway has to go. It's regulated to within that easement area. If there's trees within that easement area, that's an issue, but they are within the easement. That's the legal access easement to this property. It's the only way to get there. There's no other way to get to this property. According to the Parks and Open Space Trails map that people keep referencing, the properties noted on the map are, this map is intended to be used in conjunction with the Trails Master Plan, which identifies critical connectivity corridors for acquisition or easements. So it's not that Parks was necessarily purchasing the property. This map was adopted after the DeBoers had purchased the property. And so by providing an access easement, it meets the objectives of the Trails Master Plan and of the Parks and Open Space Plan, which I have in front of me. There was a note about maintaining sprinklers. It's interior sprinklers within the structures. It's not exterior sprinklers. Interior sprinklers are completely different with as far as maintenance and that goes. There's not like just a 10-year lifespan on them. They're not exterior sprinklers. It's actually interior fire suppression systems. Neighbors on the driveway easement must have known about the driveway easement because it was included in title documents. So it's, to say they didn't know is not the fault of the applicant. It's an easement. It's legal access to this property, and this property is actually like the remnant of the parent parcel of the entire neighborhood subdivision. Let's see. The size of the home is technically irrelevant. The hillside ordinance doesn't get into, excuse me? The hillside ordinance doesn't regulate building size. It regulates disturbance. It regulates lot coverages. It's regulated by setbacks. And this property is disturbing less than 20, or this proposal is disturbing less than 20% of a 2.1 acre parcel, which is substantially less than they would be allowed to disturb by code. Now, if they were asking for an exception to disturb more of the area, if they were asking for a variance to lot coverage, I could understand why people would be concerned about the home size as far as reviewing this application. But it's not a neighborhood compatibility type of application as far as home sizes go. And I will reiterate, the information I pulled from the house sizes comes from the Jackson County Assessor's data. So even if people disagree with it, they might want to call the assessor's office because that's the size of the house they're being taxed on. Look, one of the biggest issues with Ashland's development is that there's not land for new houses. So we only have the legal lots of record on the fringes, steep, in the creek areas, over 35%. In developed neighborhoods where people don't want additional development because they already have their houses and they would like parks to obtain the land around them. If there were additional subdivisions happening in town, substantial areas of subdividing, or if there was substantial land, these lots would probably sit there longer. But the reason why we're seeing them get developed is because there's really not a lot of land left in Ashland for development. But like I said, this is a legal lot of record. It's been on the books for many, many, many decades, and it's developable. I did want to talk about condition number 13 and asking that the engineer firm name be removed from the condition of approval. The firm that's referenced in that condition is actually a civil engineering firm, not a structural engineering firm, so it doesn't jive with the condition of approval. And then I just don't think it's necessarily appropriate to have a private engineer referenced in a condition of approval, because what happens if there's a falling out? Now Thornton Engineering's not involved. Do we have to come back and get a condition of approval modification? So it will be designed by a structural engineer, but I think Thornton should be removed. So I don't believe that the goalposts have been moved. I was a city planner in Ashland for 10.5 years before I went out on my own for the last 10 years as a private development consultant. I can say that the hoops that people are actually going through seem to be getting smaller and tighter, and every project is more difficult, and maybe that gets back to there's only the difficult properties left to develop on. But I would not say that the goalposts have been moved. This application is making an application request in accordance with what's required for hillside development. We address severe constraints. We've addressed the driveway grade to get to an existing legal lot of record. There's not water resources. They plan to mitigate the tree removals. I did talk about excavation and erosion control and that sort of thing, not in great detail, but all those things are factored into this design and addressed through the civil engineering, the structural engineering, the landscape architecture, and structural design of the property. It's residentially zoned property proposed for a single-family home on the hillside, and we believe that the packet of information in the presentation here this evening addresses all the criteria. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Now would be the time that I would close the public hearing, but we've had a request to keep the record open at least.
Yeah, so the request under ORS 1977763 is that if a participant at a public hearing requests that the quasi-judicial land use hearing, if they ask of you that the record remain open, the local government must allow the additional time for written evidence and testimony for at least 7 days. I think that Veronica and Derek have the timeline as how that would occur in this particular action. So essentially, given that today being the 11th, a 7-day period for new evidence argument from parties of record would extend to 3/18. It is important to note that if you close the public hearing and leave the record open explicitly for written materials, that's a period for new evidence to be submitted, both from the people that testified this evening and the applicant, or had provided written evidence previously. And with that, then there is typically a 7-day period to allow rebuttal of that new evidence from all parties because new information's been entered into the record. And unless waived by the applicant, we would recommend that the final legal arguments from the applicant be granted an additional 7 days. But again, that is at the applicant's discretion. If they felt that 14 days, 7 days for the initial new evidence and 7 days for rebuttal of evidence and argument was sufficient, they could make that request. So, but this is to you to decide to either leave the record open as requested, and again, it is stipulated that either a continuance of the hearing or leaving the record open is required under state law. So it's
Not much
to you to make a
discretion.
determination, but again, it's dictated in part by state ORS 197.
So I have a question. I guess actually I should have asked it to Amy. Should the commission find against the proposed exceptions, would you be willing to grant an extension to the 120 days?
I think we'd be willing to grant a reasonable exception or a reasonable extension, yes. By this, it doesn't look like we're running into a problem.
I was thinking that we were, that we might because of when the end date is.
So we have to have a final decision rendered by May 31st, and that would include any appeals as well.
And just to elaborate for the audience, there was an indication that there's no time sensitivity in terms of decision-making.
Mhm.
Under state law, the city has to make a decision on an application within 120 days, although an applicant can grant a 30-day extension to that for 150 days or longer. But again, the city's compelled to make a decision within 120. So.
Okay. So, do we need to vote on whether we agree with what we have to do? Okay. Do we have a motion to do the 777 approach? Russell?
I just have a quick question.
Sure.
Basically, there's two options right now. There's one that leaves the public testimony open and the other one that just leaves the record open. Is that correct?
Yeah, and I think that if the question of to continue, which would be saying you're leaving the public hearing open to a date certain and have that meeting 30 days out, would be leaving the record open for more testimony to come in from people that have not previously provided testimony. And also, when you reconvene, the public hearing would remain open and people could provide additional testimony at that meeting. If you close the public hearing, yet leave the record open for written information from parties of record, that narrows the potential of people providing information in the next 7 days. All the people that testified this evening or provided written comment can provide the survey information or other information they have to submit. And then again, it would follow this approach. Did that answer your question?
It absolutely did. Thank you.
And if I can just proceed off of that, if the hearing were left open until April 8th and new materials were provided, a participant at that time could then ask to have more time in order to respond to the new materials that have been provided. So the 777 approach within the 120-day limits of state law is really intended to sort of head off all those eventualities by allowing the required time for new submittals, the new time to rebut those new submittals, and then give the applicant the opportunity to rebut.
Thank you, Derek.
Okay, so my preference is not to continue the hearing, is to close the public hearing and leave the record open according to this 777 timeline in front of us.
I'd like to make a motion to close the public hearing and leave the record open with the 777 approach that's been suggested.
Is there a second?
A second.
Okay, we have 2 seconds, cool. All those in favor? Let me do a roll call. Michael? Sorry.
Commissioner Perkinson.
Aye.
Commissioner Phillips.
Aye.
Commissioner Herron.
Aye.
Commissioner McCracken-Chen.
Aye.
Commissioner Marr.
Aye.
Chair Werner.
Aye. Okay, so we have closed the public hearing. Thank you very much for your testimony this evening. The public record is open. You are certainly able to submit evidence until 4:30 on March 18th, and then all those parties can make rebuttal?
Yes, so if anybody provides information between now and March 18th, any party of record could then review that information and provide comment on it.
Okay, so that would be until March 25th at 4:30. And then the final 7 days is until April 1st at 4:30, in which the applicant only has the ability to respond. Hopefully that's clear. Okay. Moving on to our next item of the agenda, we have open discussion. Does anybody have anything? Does anybody have any comments or? Excuse me, could you leave quietly? The meeting is not over yet.
I actually just, oh, go ahead. Someone else. I just have one question.
Sure.
There's this,
Related to this application?
yeah.
Nope.
So that
Oh,
would have
sorry.
had to occur during you can do it at the deliberations when it comes back to you.
Fair enough, thanks.
I was anticipating.
No. That's sort of the point. Okay, anybody have anything new to? Okay, then oh, good. Good for
Second.
you. Okay, you guys are on the ball. Okay, all those in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
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 Aye. Bye, Greg.
So long. Thank you.
Thank
Good to
you.
see you.